Beyond the veil, the quiet room. I need to tell someone this before I stop being able to tell the difference between the sounds and the silence. I've started keeping the television on when I sleep now, which is not something I've ever needed before, and think that fact alone should tell you how much has changed in the last 4 months. I used to like quiet. I used to seek it out. Noise-canceling headphones on long flights, empty apartments, the specific pleasure of a Sunday morning with nothing on. I don't anymore. I can't anymore. And I need to write down why in order while I still trust my own memory of it, because I've noticed lately that the memory is starting to change shape slightly every time I return to it, small details shifting, and I don't like what that might mean about what's happening to the rest of me. I found the stream by accident, the way you find most things that ruin your life. A recommendation, a thumbnail, a mildly interesting premise that seemed worth 10 minutes of my evening. It was a Tuesday. I remember that specifically because Tuesdays are usually my quietest night. No plans, the apartment building unusually still, and I had settled in with a beer and my laptop the way I did most Tuesdays, looking for something forgettable to half-watch. The channel belonged to a sound engineer, mid-30s, the kind of guy who narrates everything he does with the practiced ease of someone used to being alone in a room with expensive equipment. His name was Aaron. I remember that clearly. I remember almost everything clearly, actually, which is part of the problem. He had maybe 11,000 subscribers, a modest but dedicated audience built around videos with titles like "I recorded absolute silence for 8 hours" and "What does negative decibels actually sound like?" Niche content. The kind of thing made by someone genuinely fascinated by his craft rather than someone chasing algorithm numbers, and that specific sincerity is probably why I clicked on it in the first place. There was something likable about him in the opening minutes. Warm, enthusiastic, the kind of person you'd trust to know what he was doing. The premise was simple. He'd gotten access to an anechoic chamber. The real kind, the kind universities and audio labs use, walls built from wedges of foam and fiberglass that absorb sound so completely the room registers at negative decibels, quieter than silence has any right to be. He explained this on camera with genuine excitement, the specific joy of someone about to do something they've wanted to do for a long time. A friend who worked in the acoustics department had gotten him in after hours, off the books just for the night. He said the chamber had a posted limit, 45 minutes maximum, and that limit existed for a reason. Extended exposure to true silence does something to the human mind that isn't fully understood, something about the brain manufacturing input when none exists. Phantom sounds, hallucinated presence, a kind of sensory vertigo that gets worse the longer you stay. He said he was going to beat it. Not by a little. He said he was staying an hour, maybe more if he felt good. He'd brought a small camera, positioned to catch him sitting cross-legged in the center of the chamber. Foam wedges receding into shadow all around him like the inside of some strange geometric throat, gray and angular and swallowing the light along with the sound. He set a timer visible in the corner of the frame. He waved at the camera, said something about being right back, and the door, thick, heavy, the kind of door that seals rather than simply closes, shut behind him with a sound that even through my laptop speakers felt final in a way ordinary doors don't. The stream had maybe 200 people watching when it started, I was one of them. The first 20 minutes were almost boring, and I want to be honest about that because I think it matters to what came after. Nothing about the beginning suggested what the ending would become. He talked periodically, checking in with the chat, describing the specific quality of the silence in a way that felt almost meditative. How his own heartbeat became audible. How he could hear blood moving in his ears, a soft, rushing static he'd never noticed before. How his breathing sounded enormous and strange to him, disconnected from his body, like listening to someone else breathe through a wall. This is documented. This is real. People who spend extended time in true anechoic conditions do report hearing their own bodily processes with an intensity that becomes disorienting. I looked it up afterward, needing there to be an explanation, needing some of this to be ordinary, needing a foothold somewhere in the realm of things that make sense. The chat was pleasant during this stretch. People asking questions, Aaron answering with the patient enthusiasm of someone who loved his subject. Someone asked if he was scared. He laughed and said no, said this was the opposite of scary, said this was the closest thing to peace he'd ever experienced. The world, finally, completely quiet for the first time in his adult life. At the 30-minute mark, he went quiet for a while. Just sitting, eyes closed, the small rise and fall of his shoulders the only movement on screen. The chat filled the silence instead, joking, speculating, the way chat always does when nothing is happening. I remember someone typing, "This is actually kind of boring, NGL," and getting a dozen replies agreeing. Someone else posting a countdown to the 45-minute mark like it was a sporting event. At 38 minutes, he said something happened. His voice had changed, not dramatically, just a flatness that hadn't been there before, a careful control, like a man choosing his words with more precision than the moment seemed to warrant. "I think I heard something," he said. "Probably my ears adjusting. That's a documented thing, actually. The auditory system starts compensating for the lack of input, starts generating its own noise floor. It's called auditory phantom activity. It's completely normal. I read about this before I came in." He said all of that a little too fast. The chat, for the first time, went quieter. Not silent, but the joking tone had shifted into something more attentive. At 42 minutes, he said it again, louder this time, more clicks in his voice, hesitation, the specific stammer of someone trying to sound calm and failing incrementally. There it is again. It's okay. It's rhythmic. It's not just noise, it has a pattern to it. He passed 45 minutes. The chat went wild for a second. He did it. New record. Someone typing congratulations, someone posting celebratory emotes, and then he held up a hand toward the camera, a gesture that meant wait. And the chat went quiet almost immediately. 200 people collectively leaning forward toward whatever was about to happen. "There's clicking," he said. His voice was very small in that enormous dead silence, the microphone picking up the specific deadened quality of a room with no echo at all, every word arriving and then simply ceasing to exist rather than trailing off the way sound normally does. It gave everything he said a strange, clipped, final quality, like each sentence was a small death. Like insect clicking, structured. It's not random, He stopped. I want to describe what came through the stream next as precisely as I can because I've gone back to it more times than I should have and need it recorded somewhere outside my own head in words fixed before my memory finds a way to soften it or change it or make it something I can live with more easily. Clicking. He was right about that. A specific, rhythmic, articulated clicking, not the random tick of a settling building or an insect in the walls, but something with structure, pattern, the unmistakable cadence of communication. Fast, then slow, then a cluster of clicks arranged in a sequence that repeated almost exactly the way a word repeats when someone is saying your name to get your attention. I remember leaning closer to my own laptop speaker without deciding to, the way you lean towards something you don't actually want to hear better. Aaron had gone completely still. Okay, he said to himself more than to the chat. Okay, that's the phenomenon. That's just the brain doing the thing, manufacturing input. This is documented. This is normal. I read about this. The clicking got closer. I don't know how a sound can convey proximity in a room engineered specifically to prevent sound from traveling, from reflecting, from doing anything except originating and dying instantly at its source. That's what an anechoic chamber does. That's the entire purpose of the wedges lining every surface. There should have been no way to perceive something getting closer inside it. No echo, no reverb, nothing for a sound to travel through except empty air and immediate absorption. The clicking did that anyway, the volume climbing in a way that broke the physical rules of the room he was sitting in. And underneath the clicking now there was something else. Movement. A dragging, shifting sound. Low to the ground, the specific quality of something large repositioning itself in a confined space, foam wedges being displaced somewhere just outside the frame of the camera. Chat was typing faster than I could read it. Someone had pulled up the acoustics department's public information page and posted the after-hours emergency contact number, telling everyone to call it, spam it, get someone there. Someone else was insisting it was a prank. Had to be a prank. No other explanation made sense. At 52 minutes, Aaron started to cry. Not loudly, just tears, visible on the small camera feed, his breathing gone ragged, his hands pressed flat against the foam wedges on either side of him like he was trying to anchor himself to something solid, something real, in a room that was apparently no longer only containing what it should have contained. "There's someone in here," he said. "There's someone in here with me." The chat exploded. "Get out. Get out. Leave the room. Open the door." Someone was typing the phone number for the university on repeat. Someone else was screaming in all caps for him to just leave, and I was typing too. I remember typing, "Leave now, leave now, leave now," with the specific useless panic of watching something happen through a screen with absolutely no ability to intervene. My own hands shaking slightly against my keyboard in an apartment 200 miles away from whatever was actually occurring. He didn't leave. I've thought about why many times since. I think, and this is only a guess, I'll never actually know. I think some part of him needed to understand what he was hearing before he could make himself move. The specific paralysis of a mind trying to process something that doesn't fit anywhere in its existing categories, something that violates the rules of the very room built to prevent exactly this kind of sensory confusion. He sat there. He was shaking, visibly, the camera picking up small tremors running through his shoulders, and the clicking got louder. and the dragging sound got closer, and then, at 55 minutes, the exact mark he'd have needed to hit a full 10 minutes past the posted safety limit, something changed in the audio. The chat started hearing it too. Not the clicking, something worse. A voice layered underneath the clicking and the dragging, speaking in a language that wasn't any language, syllables that felt like they were assembling and then falling apart before they could resolve into words, and it was coming through the stream now, through everyone's speakers, into 200 bedrooms and living rooms and offices at whatever hour of the night it happened to be for each of them. I heard it in my own headphones. I want to be exact about this. Not through Aaron's microphone secondhand, filtered and compressed by the stream, through my own ears. In my own dark room, a voice that sounded like it was speaking from somewhere just behind my chair, close enough that I felt the specific instinct to turn around that you feel when someone is standing directly at your back. I ripped my headphones off. My heart was going so hard I could feel it in my throat, a physical pressure, and when I looked back at the screen, the chat had gone into total chaos. Hundreds of messages a second, half the room saying they'd heard it too, half the room insisting it was just distorted audio from Aaron's mic, arguing with each other in the specific hysterical way people argue when they're all frightened and need someone else to be wrong so they can feel less frightened themselves. Aaron was screaming by then. I won't describe all of it. I don't think I could if I tried. Some of what came through that stream in the last 3 minutes doesn't sit in memory the way ordinary things sit in memory. It sits somewhere else, somewhere that surfaces at 3 in the morning, uninvited, unannounced, without the courtesy of being triggered by anything I can identify. He was screaming, and the clicking had become continuous, a wall of sound, and underneath it, that layered non-language voice was saying something over and over, faster each time, building towards something, and Aaron's screaming got higher and thinner, and then the stream cut. Not ended. Cut. Mid-frame, mid-sound, the specific abrupt silence of a connection severed rather than closed, and the screen went to the platform's default stream offline message, cheerful blue and white against everything that had just happened, and 200 people sat in their own homes, not knowing what they'd just watched, or whether the man on the other end of it was alive. He was never found. I want to be clear about that because I think it matters. The university confirmed a chamber had been accessed without authorization. They confirmed equipment was left inside, camera still running, feed disconnected at the source, battery drained rather than cut, which meant the recording had kept going off-stream for some time after the feed died. Though nobody has ever said what if anything was on that footage, whether it was ever recovered, whether anyone has ever actually watched it. They did not confirm what happened to the person who'd been inside it, because as far as any official statement has ever said, there was no person inside it when they finally opened the door. Just the equipment, just the foam wedges, undisturbed, and a room that measured, when they tested it again out of what I can only assume was morbid procedural obligation, exactly as silent as it always had. His family made a statement once, weeks later, asking for privacy, asking people to stop speculating. It read like the statement of people who did not have an explanation either and had stopped expecting one. That was 4 months ago. I didn't think about it every day at first. It receded the way things do, became a strange internet memory, A story I'd mentioned sometimes at a party, the guy who disappeared on a live stream wasn't that insane, and people would make the appropriate sounds of disbelief and the conversation would move on. I watched the archived footage exactly once more, about 6 weeks after it happened, mostly to confirm to myself that I hadn't imagined the worst parts, that memory hadn't exaggerated something that was actually more mundane on a second viewing. It wasn't more mundane. If anything, it was worse because the second time I already knew what was coming and had to sit through the whole slow build toward it with dread instead of curiosity. I heard the clicking again through my own headphones, in my own room. I told myself it was the recording, just audio, just something that had genuinely been captured and was simply unsettling to listen to twice. No different than jump scaring yourself on purpose. I didn't watch it a third time, but I started hearing it anyway. Not always, not even often at first, just in specific moments. Late at night, when the apartment was fully quiet, when the traffic outside had finally stopped and the refrigerator had cycled off, and there was, for a few minutes, something close to true silence in my own home. That's when it would start. Faint, distant, that same structured, patient clicking, and underneath it, if I stayed still enough, if I let the silence stretch long enough, the beginning of that dragging sound. At first, I convinced myself it was tinnitus, a ringing that had taken on a strange rhythmic quality, the mind pattern-matching noise into something familiar because I'd primed it to expect exactly this. I went so far as to see a doctor who found nothing wrong with my hearing, who suggested stress, poor sleep, the kind of vague diagnosis doctors give when the tests come back clean and the patient clearly needs an answer anyway. It's gotten louder over the past month. It used to take real silence to hear it. Total stillness, the deep quiet of 3 a.m. Now I hear it in smaller gaps. A pause in conversation. A moment between songs. The 3 seconds of nothing right before I fall asleep, which is exactly why I've started sleeping with the television on. Some late-night rerun murmuring in the background, anything to keep the silence from ever fully arriving. Last week, a friend was over, and we were sitting in comfortable silence, the kind two people share when they don't need to fill every moment with talking. And she went very still and looked at me and said, "Do you hear that? Like a clicking?" And I said, "Yes." And she said, "It sounds like it's getting closer." And neither of us said anything else for a long time, and I have not invited her over again since. Not because I don't want to see her, but because I don't know what it means that she heard it too. Whether that means it's spreading through me now, whether I've become something like Aaron's stream, whether sitting quietly in a room with me is its own kind of exposure. I've looked since for others. There's a forum, small, quiet in its own way, a handful of people who watched that stream live and never fully stopped hearing what they heard that night. We don't talk about it often. Nobody wants to be the one who admits it's gotten worse. But every few weeks someone posts, always late, always some version of the same sentence. "It's louder tonight. Is anyone else?" And the replies come slowly, one by one, from people scattered in dark rooms all over the world, checking in with each other the way you'd check on a wound to see if it's healing or spreading. It isn't healing. I don't know how many people were in that chat. I don't know how many of them are hearing what I'm hearing now in their own quiet rooms, at whatever specific volume of silence it takes for each of them, in whatever city, Whatever time zone, whatever hour the world finally goes still enough to let it through. I don't know what happens when it finishes getting close enough. If you've made it this far into what I'm telling you, if you've been sitting somewhere quiet while you listen to this, I need you to do one thing before you do anything else. Check if it's quiet where you are right now, really quiet, and tell me if you hear it too.